Hello and welcome to The Point. It is an honor to welcome you in this way and create an experience for you to consider new ideas and new thoughts and new perspectives. The idea at The Point is to find peace and ease and excitement with change and with the change that we want in the world. And a good friend of mine used to say, be the change you want to see in the world. That got added to with be the peace you want to see in the world. So in the last few episodes, since the beginning of the year, you've been considering what's happened with these resolutions. If you've been following closely and working with us, and those of you that are clients, I know that you planned the end of the year to end strong and start this year over-prepared and ready to roll into the year and make it absolutely phenomenal and make this year count like none other have before. We're on a trend to allow that to happen for years to come, months and years to come, and to continue year over year to live a life of constant improvement rather than juggling or falling behind or anything else. And to do that, it takes some skill building and it takes getting to know yourself better. And as we reached the end of February, a lot of people were talking. You were giving me feedback that yourself and other people in your life were beginning to have conversations about feeling like that passion and vigor that we ran into the year with, that you were able to just push through the new year with excitement and knowing where you were going, was starting to wear off just a little bit. And things were getting more routine, not necessarily in a great way of automation and collapsing time and doing all these positive, wonderful things that help us feel efficient and maximized and on the money. Without a lot of stress and pressure, right? With ease and effortlessness. It's okay to feel that and to experience that letting off. And it's okay to acknowledge, right? The importance of what we can do is to be mindful. So what I'm encouraging you to do today, consider yourself in a mindful state of just being real in the ebb and flow of life and understand where you are. What's been considered the past few weeks is these ideas of how we learn to listen to ourselves and to others and to improve on our listening ability. And by listening, we mean receiving and being receptive to all of the communication that surrounds us and choosing how that gets filtered by how we use our conscious mind to absorb unconsciously the most important things we can to maintain balance and alignment with the universe so that you always feel like the universe is collaborating and creating in your favor. Today, it feels important. Last week you got to hear a story, and the story was about this shift in perspective from years and years of a story that was told about the patriarchal perspective of a family pioneering West over 100 years ago, 150, almost 200 years ago is when the story really started, and came to the U.S. and pioneered West through all types of issues and challenges, societal challenges that were happening at the time. And the story took a turn at the turn of the 20th century in 1899 and 1901 with Mother Spikes, and hearing this story as a young man and seeing and experiencing her perspective and how much that changed the family, how much that changed my perspective and my understanding and my daughter's understanding and my entire family's thought process around a lot of these stories when we started considering it from that matriarchal view. And the call to action was to learn to listen to yourself and to others around you from a place of believing each other's experience. We can argue facts and we can collaborate on ideas and we can do all these things, but the point being that we are much more powerful when we listen and believe each other's experiences. And we can still challenge each other's experiences, but it's best to challenge each other's experiences from a values perspective and questioning and helping somebody determine if they've shown up in the best way they choose and can. You can surround yourself with people that desire to improve and are consistently looking for ways to be better and ways to listen better. And it's okay to look in the mirror and choose to see the best version of you and the best ways to move forward. And it's amazing to find these nuance and these little ways to twist and tweak the best part of ourselves so that we truly become skilled experts at being you. You become the most skilled expert at being you to the point of extreme precision with ease and effortlessness, just by aiming different strategies, using your best self, using your strengths toward goals. And to do this, it's important for you to learn to listen. It's so easy to talk and block. We talk and we block information that's coming in that's best if we would receive it and pay attention to it. If you get feedback, all feedback is good. There is no actual failure if we're receiving feedback. So we get feedback. If you're getting feedback, that's good. There's no need to push back or justify or rationalize or share the story why or talk about the alternatives. Oftentimes we use our words to block what we're hearing because it's easier not to hear it. But sometimes easier isn't getting us where we want to go. And it's only easier because that's what we think it is. Yet it makes where we're trying to get to a more difficult destination to reach. Now, that brings one other thing up. If you're looking for a destination, you're missing the point. Look for the journey. It's the same thing that you've heard me say before of stop doing what others have done and seek what they have sought. If you're seeking what they sought, that may end up in doing some of what they've done, but with changes and trends and times and these other things, you can't do what they've done. Case in point on that, since COVID, a large corporation that I work with is in an entirely different way of serving their clients because they're no longer showing up and sitting in an office with people and going through the information that exists to help them learn more from the data and the people and the information and the situations that are happening around them, all the systems they have. And they're not able to walk in the door and sit there and absorb themselves in that community and structure. Yet how those people connect is still a value of importance. And yet we can't do that anymore. We started a campaign in this company called LinkedIn is the New Donuts. So another challenge of how you're listening to others. Think about that type of concept for a minute and how you interact with it. Do you use LinkedIn? Do you use other social media? I use LinkedIn the most. I do have other social media, and you may be seeing this through YouTube or Instagram on a clip or in the full podcast. The point being that if you're listening in this new era to people, you're probably listening differently than you did before. You're connecting online differently and listening differently. But if you're on LinkedIn and you're considering how you're impacting your community and you're not able to visit anymore or talk. We don't talk on the phone the same. There's more emails and more little chat rooms and other things that we use. What are the multiple other ways that you're connecting? And maybe it is a chat room like Teams or Slack or one of these others. But oftentimes those are just used in our inner teams. And when it comes with clients and reaching across other lines, it has to be email, rarely a phone call. Who has time for that anymore? And people don't have phones on their desk. So lots of things have changed in how we communicate. Therefore, lots of things have changed in how we listen, how we identify the needs of the people that are in our lives, and then how we reciprocate and or act in a positive way to make a difference for them. So then the campaign of LinkedIn is the new donuts, the idea is we can't show up into a client's office anymore and bring donuts necessarily. Now, there's still some instances where we can, but with remote work and with hybrid work, it's pretty hit or miss in a lot of areas. It's pretty hit or miss. So we still have job sites, and if we're in the trades, and that would be a way to do it, but offices are different. So certainly there are some ways that it's still the same for us to show up and meet people, but in so many instances, it's not. So how are you adjusting yourself appropriately to use the new tools of today to honor the values of the past that are still important to you? We're missing. I had an experience with Uber the other day. We're missing that human touch in many of these programs and processes and companies. And if I could avoid Uber for a while, I will. It may be a necessary thing, but I wasn't able to add a tip to the driver. And I've tried a handful of ways of getting that driver a tip, and I get the same automated computered responses no matter what angle I take. Now, in other instances, I did finally get a hold of people, but I had a similar situation with Uber Eats and some other things where if something's not going well, there's no way to get a real answer. And if the answer you're looking for isn't within that system of tips and tricks, you're not going to get very far, and it ends up consuming your time. And then you start wondering, well, what's important to me? It was important to me to give this guy a tip. He was working hard. He was doing a good job. And I have a belief system that says Uber's taking a lot of money from the drivers. That's based on what I hear from drivers and based on why other companies are popping up now to want to do it. But the point being for you to hear and for you to listen to and for you to think forward into your life of how this works is, how are you listening? How are you listening to others? How are you listening to yourself? And how are you listening to what's important and matters most to connect you? If you're post-COVID and you're in the professional world and you're not living in a strategy to connect on LinkedIn, and there are people in your life that are remotely working, there's a missing of a positive intention to connect and add value in people's lives to continue with that personal touch. You may be one of those people that still writes handwritten notes and sends it to them. That's fine. You can get their address and you can do that. That's a stellar move. But it's important to be doing something. This last holidays, a handful of clients had sent letters out, and I received I got so many letters from corporations saying, do not send gifts or candy or flowers for the holidays. We will not receive them. We are not in the office enough to receive them. So are we listening, or did we still send them anyway? I know a handful of people, as we talked about it, I started listening, and some people were still sending them. And a lot of letters then went out saying, hey, in the future, right? So are we listening to each other? There are all these systems and processes in place that are not acknowledging the intelligence, the wisdom, or the human connection. That's not being valued the same anymore. So, yet it is important. There's a certain amount of AI that will not capture the nuance of today. And if we're using AI is certainly learning to be more thought-based and proactive. But if it's new human thought and idea based on new circumstances, it won't get that until we have the idea. So if you're trying to use AI to help you write something that's about a change that no one has made yet, or a change that's not been recommended or not been popular, but the shift in the universe, the shift in the workload, the shift in what's happening in systems, the shift from a new technology, if it's not aware of that and there's a human idea that there is to capture that we could then share with others, that we can't necessarily use AI to help us. They won't do it for us because it's new thought, new idea based on new circumstances. So what are you doing to listen to others and to capture, acknowledge, and honor the intelligence that exists out there that you are connected to? I call that intelligence capital. So it lives in you, it lives in your organizations, it lives in your church, it lives in your community, and people matter. And connecting matters, not from your agenda, from a place of wanting to connect with another human and understand them better. We build better bridges that way. So that's a quick thought download of what we do to listen. Now, I want to connect it and make the point back to the consideration of what was initially brought up as far as we're in a new year, we're in March, we're rounding the end of the first quarter of this physical year. You may have a different fiscal year. That's great. That's okay. But we're rounding the corner towards the end of the first quarter of 2024. And it's a great time to stop and pay attention to what you intended for the year, and it's a benchmark to use and to blow by fast, right? To already start considering how you're going to wrap up this quarter and move into the next. Are you on target for the goals you set for the entire year, for the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? It brings us to that idea of how far out of a goal, of a picture of your life you have set. The higher level goal we have, the most overarching goal that we have, the easier it is to make value-based decisions in our actions today that will drive really simple decisions on things that would otherwise be tough because we don't have the biggest view of who we are to become. So it's a great time to listen to what matters most to you by revisiting some things you've written that you don't only look at every couple of months. And it's a great time to consider and give yourself your own gauge on how well you're doing. And more than ever, we're going into the spring, and it's a great time to start conditioning and asking people how they think you're doing showing up in their life. Start asking them if you're making the impact you'd like to with them. Do they feel loved, encouraged, supported? It's a great question to ask. Hey, honey, how well am I doing so far this year at creating an experience for you where you feel loved, encouraged, and supported? What a great question. Would you love it if your partner said that to you? What if at work, hey, my partner at work, my friend, my coworker, my manager, someone that works for me, with me, hey, use their name instead of honey, of course. How am I doing at meeting your needs here at work? How am I doing at supporting you and getting you what you need from me to do your job well? How well do you think everyone around you is doing that? How could I be supportive and helpful to you? It's a time to listen. We're not going to listen if we don't ask the right questions. Well, we may listen and we may still see, feel, and sense things that are going on. We can shift it and listen a little more powerfully if we ask powerful, open-ended questions to learn more and give people an opportunity. Another gauge you can use is just listen to the body language and the volume of the conversation that comes back as to whether or not that person feels safe enough to confide in you and tell you the truth of what they're really thinking. And encourage them to be okay with saying something that might upset you. You can be the person that doesn't get upset. You just accept the feedback instead of getting upset with the feedback. Accept the feedback, learn what you can. The alternative is to continue to run around self-centered and make everyone else your problem. That can feel good for a little while, but it's not going to get you where you want to go. I'm a testimony to that. Consider what you're listening to, how you're listening to it, and what your intentions are of what you're trying to accomplish in the world. The last 2 months of podcasts should set that up really well for you to have some information to be successful and have some hot things to consider moving forward. We will continue moving and talking about this concept as we move towards the next few months, and we dig a little bit deeper into strengths and that designing process from a place of actual practice. And we'll go back into some visualization skills and the power and reasoning for visualization, because the other side of listening is what we then project and how we project and own the shortcomings and misgivings that we may show up with, and own the realities that we've created to make shifting into new behaviors that get us all what we want simpler and easier. It's going to be a powerful year for you to learn everything you need to learn to get everything you want out of life for yourself and your loved ones and those around you. Peace be to you. I'm honored that you're here. I'm honored that you're listening. It is an absolute honor to be of service in this way, and we will see you soon on the next one. Thank you for joining us for another amazing episode of The Point with me, Jeff Spikes. The greatest compliment you could give me is liking, loving, and sharing this episode with all your friends. So please, if you're on Spotify, iHeart, or iTunes, leave a 5-star rating and review. If you're on YouTube, like and subscribe. Make sure to tag me. I love hearing from you, the listeners of this show. The links for all my social and iTunes are in the show notes. Also, if you'd like to engage with me in anything related to my coaching, consulting, speaking, or programs, please visit jeffspikes.com for everything you would need to know to engage with me offline. And lastly, thank you for your time, your attention, and your consideration. This is The Point.